Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and unknowingly holding a piece of history that millions of people have touched, spent, and forgotten. Yet collectors quietly search for it every day. What if that ordinary coin from 1967 could tell a story far more valuable than its 1 cent face value? Today, we're diving into the 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks incredibly common at first glance, but hides a fascinating story tied to one of the most unusual periods in American coin history. The 1967 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1967, this coin had already been in circulation for nearly 6 decades, becoming one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. But something unusual happened during the mid-1960s that makes the 1967 penny stand out from many others. To understand why this coin exists the way it does, we need to go back a few years earlier. In the early 1960s, the United States faced a major coin shortage. People began hoarding coins, especially older silver ones, believing they would become more valuable over time. As coins disappeared from circulation, everyday transactions became difficult. The government needed a solution and fast.in response. The U.S. Mint made a surprising decision. From 1965 to 1967, they removed mint marks from all coins. That means coins produced in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco were no longer identified by a letter. The goal was simple: discourage collectors from hoarding coins based on where they were made. The 1967 Lincoln penny is one of the coins produced during this unique period, and that's why it has no mint mark at all. At first, this might seem like a small detail, but it makes the 1967 penny part of a very specific historical window. Every single Lincoln penny from that year lacks a mint mark, which instantly connects it to this nationwide effort to stabilize the economy and restore coin circulation. Now let's talk about what this coin actually looks like. On the front, you'll see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right, the year 1967. Since there is no mint mark, the space below the date is blank. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail many people overlook. The coin is made primarily of copper, about 95%, with the remaining 5% consisting of tin and zinc. It weighs around 3.11 grams and has a smooth edge. These specifications were standard for pennies of that era, just before major composition changes happened in later decades. So, if millions of these coins were produced, why do collectors care about the 1967 no mint mark penny? The truth is, most 1967 pennies are not rare in the traditional sense. In fact, hundreds of millions were minted. But value in coin collecting doesn't always come from rarity alone. Condition plays a huge role. A 1967 penny that has been heavily circulated, scratched, and worn down is typically worth only a few cents. However, a coin that has been preserved in near-perfect condition can be surprisingly valuable. Collectors use a grading system to measure a coin's condition. Coins graded as mint state, meaning they show no signs of wear, are the ones that attract attention. A 1967 penny in mint state condition, especially with a strong, clean strike and original luster, can sell for significantly more than its face value. There are also special versions known as special mint sets, or SMS coins. During the years without mint marks, the U.S. Mint did not produce traditional proof coins for collectors. Instead, they created these special mint sets. The 1967 SMS penny often has a sharper appearance, with more detail and a slightly reflective finish. These coins were never intended for circulation, which makes them more desirable today. Some high-quality 1967 SMS pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars, and in rare cases, even more. The difference comes down to condition, eye appeal, and how well the coin has been preserved over time. Another area where value can increase is mint errors. While most 1967 pennies were struck correctly, a small number left the mint with mistakes. These can include off-center strikes, double dies, or planchet errors. A double die, for example, occurs when the design is stamped more than once slightly off alignment, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the letters or numbers. If you happen to find a 1967 penny with a clear and dramatic error, it could be worth far more than a standard coin. Some error coins from this year have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the severity and uniqueness of the mistake. Now you might be wondering, how can you tell if your 1967 penny is valuable or just a regular coin? Start by checking the condition. Look at the high points of the design, especially Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial. If these areas are worn down, the coin has likely been in circulation for a long time and will be less valuable. Next, examine the surface. A valuable coin will often have a bright, original shine, known as luster, and minimal scratches or marks. You should also look closely for any unusual features. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the date and lettering. If you notice doubling, misalignment, or anything that looks out of the ordinary, you might have an error coin worth investigating further. Weight can also be a clue. A genuine 1967 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could indicate a mint error or, in rare cases, a counterfeit. Speaking of counterfeits, while 1967 pennies are not commonly faked due to their relatively low value, it's still important to be cautious. If you believe you have a high-value coin, especially one with an error or in exceptional condition, consider having it authenticated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether the coin is genuine and assign it an official grade, which can greatly increase its market value. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though the 1967 penny has no mint mark, it was still produced in multiple locations. The lack of a mint mark doesn't mean it came from a single place. Instead, it reflects a unique moment in history when the U.S. Mint chose to unify all coin production under a single, anonymous appearance. Another interesting detail is that many collectors enjoy searching through rolls of old pennies, specifically looking for coins from the 1965 to 1967 period. These coins represent a break from tradition, making them a small but meaningful piece of American history. So why do collectors still love the 1967 Lincoln penny today? It's not just about the potential value. It's about the story behind the coin. This penny represents a time when the country faced economic challenges and made bold decisions to solve them. It's a reminder that even the smallest objects in our daily lives can carry deep historical significance. For collectors, finding a high-grade 1967 penny or a rare error version feels like uncovering a hidden treasure. It's the thrill of discovery, the connection to the past, and the idea that something so small could hold unexpected value. And for everyday people, this coin offers a simple but powerful lesson. Sometimes, the things we overlook the most are the ones worth a second look. That old jar of pennies sitting on a shelf might contain more than just spare change. It could hold a piece of history waiting to be rediscovered. As you go about your day, think about the coins you handle without a second thought. That 1967 penny with no mint mark might seem ordinary, but now you know its story. You know why it exists, what makes it unique, and how it fits into a larger moment in time. And who knows, the next time you check your pocket or open an old coin jar, you might just find one of these quiet little pieces of history staring back at you, waiting to be noticed. Welcome back. Imagine finding a single penny in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but could quietly be worth far more than you ever expected. Not thousands, not millions, but still enough to make collectors stop, look twice, and even compete to own it. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1969 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that often gets overlooked, yet hides a fascinating blend of history, subtle rarity, and collector appeal. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1969, this coin had already been circulating for 60 years, becoming one of the most recognizable pieces of American currency. The D Mint mark tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for striking billions of coins each year. At first glance, this coin doesn't seem special. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, designed by Victor David Brenner, with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1969, along with the small D Mint mark on the right. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial design, which had replaced the earlier wheat ears in 1959. It's a design many people have seen countless times, often without a second thought. But the story of the 1969 D penny begins during a unique period in American history. The late 1960s were marked by rapid economic change, increasing demand for coins, and improvements in minting technology. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to keep up with circulation needs. In fact, over 4 billion 1969 D pennies were struck. That number alone might make you think this coin can't possibly be rare. And in most cases, you'd be right. However, rarity in coin collecting doesn't always come from low mintage numbers. Sometimes, it comes from condition, subtle variations, or overlooked details that only trained eyes can spot. And that's where the 1969 D penny starts to become interesting. Let's talk about its physical characteristics. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It weighs about 3.11 grams and has that classic reddish-brown color when in fresh condition. Over time, many of these coins have darkened to a brown tone due to oxidation, which is completely normal. Now, while most 1969 D pennies are common in circulated condition, finding one in high-grade, uncirculated condition is much more difficult than people realize. Coins that were never used in everyday transactions tend to preserve their original luster, sharp details, and bright surfaces. These are the coins collectors are always searching for. Another layer of intrigue comes from minting quality. During high-production years like 1969, quality control wasn't always perfect. This led to small variations and occasional errors. While the famous 1969 double die penny comes from the Philadelphia Mint and not Denver, collectors still keep a close eye on 1969 D pennies for minor errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or unusual surface marks. Even a small minting error can significantly increase a coin's value. Imagine two identical pennies, one perfectly normal, and one with a slight but noticeable misprint. To most people, they might look similar. But to a collector, that tiny difference could mean the coin is far more desirable. So, why is the 1969 D penny considered valuable at all if so many were made? The answer lies in condition and demand. Most of these coins entered circulation immediately and were used for years. That means truly pristine examples are surprisingly scarce today. In average circulated condition, a 1969 D penny is usually worth only a few cents above face value. But in uncirculated condition, especially with a bright red color and no signs of wear, the value can jump significantly. Some high-grade examples have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their condition and grading. Coins graded at the highest levels, such as MS 65 or above, are particularly sought after. These coins show almost no imperfections, making them stand out in a sea of worn and ordinary pennies. In rare cases, top-tier examples have reached impressive auction prices, especially when certified by professional grading services. Now, let's talk about how you can identify a genuine 1969 D Lincoln penny. First, look for the date and mint mark. The 1969 should be clearly stamped, and the small d should appear just below the date. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people attempt to add or modify mint marks to make a coin appear more valuable. Next, examine the coin's surface. Authentic coins will have consistent wear patterns and natural aging. If something looks unusual, like a shiny spot where the mint mark is located or uneven texture, it could be a sign of tampering. Weight is another important factor. A genuine 1969 D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, that could indicate a fake or altered coin. Magnification can also help. Using a simple magnifying glass, you can check for details in Lincoln's hair, the lettering, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side. Sharp, well-defined details are a good sign of authenticity and higher quality. Here's something surprising. Many collectors have reported finding valuable coins in everyday places. Old jars, inherited collections, or even pocket change. While it's becoming less common, it's still possible. The 1969 D penny is a perfect example of a coin that could easily be overlooked, even though certain versions of it are worth much more than 1 cent. Another interesting fact is that coin color plays a huge role in value. Collectors classify copper coins as red, red-brown, or brown. Red coins, which retain most of their original mint color, are the most valuable. Red-brown coins fall somewhere in between, and fully brown coins are typically the least valuable, though still collectible. The 1969 D-penny also represents a transitional moment in American coinage. Just a few years later, in the early 1970s, changes in metal composition and rising copper prices would begin to affect how coins were produced. So, in a way, this penny is part of the last generation of classic copper cents. Collectors today love the 1969 D-penny not because it's the rarest coin ever made, but because it offers a realistic entry point into coin collecting. It's affordable, widely available, and still holds the potential for hidden value if you know what to look for. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to it. This coin was in circulation during a time of major cultural and historical events in the United States. Holding one is like holding a small piece of that era, a tangible link to the past. For beginners, it's an excellent coin to study. It teaches the importance of condition, attention to detail, and the thrill of discovery. For experienced collectors, it's a reminder that even common coins can hold surprises. And perhaps the most exciting part is the possibility. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten drawer or an old coin jar, there could be a 1969 D-penny in near-perfect condition, waiting to be discovered. A coin that most people would ignore, but a collector would instantly recognize as something special. So the next time you come across a penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the date, the mint mark, the color, and the condition, because sometimes the smallest and most ordinary objects can carry the biggest stories. And who knows, that one simple penny might just be the start of your journey into the fascinating world of coin collecting. Welcome back. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but could quietly hold a story of history, hidden details, and even surprising value. Today, we're diving into the 1979 D Lincoln penny, a coin that most people overlook, yet collectors continue to search for with sharp eyes and real curiosity. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint in Denver, which is why you'll see the small D mint mark just below the date on the front of the coin. At first glance, it doesn't look very different from other pennies. It still carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But like many coins in American history, its true interest lies beneath the surface. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the late 1970s. The United States was dealing with economic changes, including inflation, and the cost of producing coins was becoming a real concern. Pennies at that time were still made mostly of copper, specifically 95% copper and 5% zinc. This meant they had a solid feel and a distinctive reddish-brown color when new. The Lincoln cent design itself had already been in use for decades. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. By 1979, this design was already a familiar part of everyday life. Millions of Americans handled these coins daily without a second thought. In 1979, the Denver Mint produced over 4 billion Lincoln pennies. That's right, billions. On paper, that might make this coin seem extremely common and not worth much more than 1 cent. And in most cases, that's true. But as experienced collectors know, rarity doesn't always come from low mintage numbers. Sometimes, it comes from condition, small errors, or unique variations that only a trained eye can spot. Let's talk about the features of the 1979 D Lincoln penny. On the front, also called the obverse, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln facing to the right. Above his head is the word liberty, and the phrase "In God We Trust" arches across the top. The year 1979 appears to the right of Lincoln, with the small D mint mark just below it. On the reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat ears design. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, making it one of the few coins where the same person appears on both sides. Now, while billions of these coins were produced, not all of them are equal. One of the key factors that can make a 1979 D penny valuable is its condition. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can retain their original shine and detail. These are known as mint state coins, and collectors are always willing to pay more for them. Another factor that adds value is color. Copper coins like the 1979 penny are classified into 3 main color categories: red, red-brown, and brown. A fully red coin, which means it still has most of its original bright copper color, is considered the most desirable. Over time, exposure to air and handling causes the coin to darken, turning it brown. So finding a bright red 1979 D penny in excellent condition is much harder than it might seem. But where things get really interesting is in the world of mint errors. These are small mistakes that happen during the production process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors actively hunt for. With the 1979 D penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. There are also cases of weak strikes, where the details of the coin appear soft or incomplete, and die cracks which show up as raised lines on the surface. While not every error is valuable, certain types, especially clear and dramatic ones, can significantly increase the coin's worth. So, how much is a 1979 D Lincoln penny actually worth? In most cases, if the coin is heavily circulated and shows wear, it's only worth its face value of 1 cent. However, uncirculated examples in high grades can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on their quality. For example, a well-preserved 1979 D penny graded at a high mint state level can sell for anywhere from $10 to $50, and in some rare cases even higher. Coins with strong red color and sharp details tend to command the best prices. If you add a noticeable mint error into the mix, the value can jump even further, sometimes reaching into the hundreds of dollars for the right collector. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if you have a valuable 1979 D penny or just a regular one. The first step is to check the mint mark. Look closely under the date and confirm that there is a small D. Next, examine the coin's condition. Does it still have a bright, shiny surface, or does it look dull and worn? Are the details sharp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lines of the memorial? You should also look for any unusual features. Use a magnifying glass if possible and check for doubling in the letters or numbers, off-center designs, or any strange marks that don't look like normal wear. These could be signs of a mint error. Weight is another simple test. A genuine 1979 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If the weight is significantly off, it could indicate damage, alteration, or in rare cases, a different metal composition. There's also the question of counterfeits. While it's not common for someone to fake a 1979 D penny, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify mint marks or change dates to make a coin appear more valuable. That's why it's important to compare your coin with verified examples, or, if you believe you have something special, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. The year 1979 is also famous in coin history because it marked the introduction of the Susan B. Anthony dollar, the first U.S. coin to feature a real woman. While that's a completely different coin, it shows how the late 1970s were a time of change and experimentation in American currency. Another interesting detail is that just a few years after 1979, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. That means the 1979 penny is part of the last generation of heavier, copper-based cents, giving it a bit of extra historical significance. Collectors today are drawn to the 1979 D Lincoln penny not because it's rare in quantity, but because it represents a moment in time. It's a coin that millions of people used during a very different era, yet it still carries the same design that connects us to over a century of American history. For some collectors, it's about completing a set of Lincoln memorial cents. For others, it's about finding that one perfect example with flawless surfaces and deep red color. And for a few lucky individuals, it's about discovering a rare error that turns a simple penny into a small treasure. The truth is, coins like the 1979 D penny remind us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it takes patience, attention to detail, and a bit of curiosity to see what others might miss, so the next time you come across a handful of loose change, take a closer look. That ordinary penny might not just be spare change. It could be a piece of history, a collector's item, or even the start of a new hobby that changes the way you see money forever. And who knows? The next coin you pick up could have a story waiting to be discovered. Welcome back. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket and realizing it might hold a secret that most people completely overlook. A coin so ordinary in appearance that millions ignored it, Yet a few rare versions have caught the attention of serious collectors. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems common at first glance but hides some fascinating details that could surprise you. The 1988 Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin series in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln cent quickly became one of the most recognized coins in circulation. By 1988, this coin had already been in use for nearly 80 years, and billions were produced every year to keep up with everyday transactions. Now, when we say no mint mark, it might sound like something is missing, but in reality, it's exactly how the coin was meant to be. Pennies without a mint mark in 1988 were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not include a mint mark on its coins for many years. So at first, there's nothing unusual about a 1988 penny without a mint mark. In fact, hundreds of millions of them were made. But here's where things start to get interesting. The late 1980s was a time when the U.S. Mint was still adjusting to changes in coin composition. Since 1982, pennies were no longer made mostly of copper. Instead, they were made from a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change was made to reduce production costs as copper prices rose. By 1988, all pennies followed this newer composition, giving them a slightly different feel and durability compared to older coins. The design of the 1988 Lincoln penny remained classic and familiar. On the front, you see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right, along with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1988 on the right. On the back, you find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail many people miss entirely at first glance. Nothing seems rare about this coin. But collectors know that sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. One of the most talked about aspects of the 1988 penny is the possibility of design variations and minting errors. In particular, there is a known variety involving the reverse design, where some coins appear to have been struck using a reverse die intended for a different year. This subtle difference is extremely hard to spot without careful comparison, but it has made certain 1988 pennies far more desirable than others. These rare varieties don't jump out at you. You won't notice them just by casually looking at the coin. Instead, collectors examine fine details like the lettering style, spacing, and shape of certain elements on the reverse side. When something doesn't match the standard design for that year, it raises questions and sometimes value. Another factor that can increase the value of a 1988 no-mint mark penny is its condition. Most pennies in circulation become worn over time. They get scratched, faded, and lose their original shine. But if you find one that looks almost brand new with sharp details and a bright surface, it could be worth much more than its face value. Coins that are graded as mint state, meaning they show little to no signs of wear, are especially attractive to collectors. Even a common coin can become valuable if it's preserved in exceptional condition. For the 1988 penny, high-grade examples have been known to sell for significantly higher prices than ordinary circulated ones. Now let's talk about actual value, because this is where curiosity really builds. Most 1988 no-mint mark pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. That's the honest truth. But certain examples, particularly those with unusual characteristics or near-perfect condition, have sold for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100. And in rare cases, coins with confirmed design variations or errors can reach even higher values depending on collector demand. For example, a well-preserved 1988 penny graded at a high level by a professional grading service might sell for $50, $100, or more at auction. Coins with confirmed variety differences can attract even stronger interest, especially if they are certified and documented. But here's the important part: value doesn't come from age alone. A coin being old doesn't automatically make it rare. What truly matters is a combination of condition, rarity, and collector interest. So how can you tell if your 1988 no-mint mark penny is worth more than just a cent? Start by examining the coin carefully under good lighting. Look at the details of Lincoln's face, the lettering, and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Check if the coin still has its original shine, known as luster. If it looks dull and heavily worn, it's likely just a common circulated coin. Next, compare it to images of known varieties. Pay close attention to small differences in the reverse design. This step requires patience, but it's where hidden value can sometimes be discovered. Also, consider the weight and feel of the coin. Since 1988 pennies are made from zinc with a copper coating, they should weigh about 2.5 grams. If a coin feels unusually heavy or different, it could indicate something unusual. Though this is rare, if you believe you've found something special, the best step is to have the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. They can confirm whether it's a standard coin or something more unique. Here's a surprising fact: billions of pennies pass through people's hands every year, yet very few are ever examined closely. That means valuable coins can sit unnoticed in jars, drawers, or even pocket change for years. Another interesting detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design used on the 1988 penny was retired just 2 decades later, in 2008. This means the 1988 penny is part of the final era of that classic design, adding a bit of historical charm to its story. Collectors also love this coin because it represents a time of transition. The shift to zinc composition, the continuation of a long-standing design, and the possibility of subtle variations all make it an intriguing piece to study. For many collectors, the excitement isn't just about money. It's about the hunt. The idea that something rare could be hiding in plain sight makes even the most common coin feel special. And that's exactly what makes the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so fascinating. It reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it takes curiosity, attention, and a closer look to uncover something truly interesting. So next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a moment to look at it carefully. Because while most will be ordinary, there's always a small chance that one of them could tell a much more valuable story. And who knows? The next coin you pick up might not just be spare change. It might be a hidden piece of history waiting to be discovered. Welcome back. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now could be worth far more than just 1 cent? Not thousands, not millions, but enough to make you stop and look twice. Today, we're uncovering the truth about the 1995 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions overlook, yet collectors never ignore. The 1995 D Lincoln penny is a small copper-colored coin produced in Denver, identified by the tiny D mint mark just below the date. At first glance, it looks like any other penny you've handled countless times. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But beneath that ordinary appearance lies a story shaped by history, production quirks, and the sharp eyes of collectors. To understand this coin, we have to go back to 1995. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year, and the Denver Mint was one of the busiest facilities. That year alone, over 7 billion pennies were struck in Denver. These coins were created for everyday transactions, never intended to be rare or valuable. They were made quickly, efficiently, and in massive quantities to keep up with demand. The penny itself was composed mostly of zinc, about 97.5%, with a thin copper plating making up the remaining 2.5%. This composition had been standard since 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to switch from solid copper coins to a more cost-effective solution. Despite the change, the coin retained its classic appearance, preserving the image of Lincoln that Americans had known for generations. The design of the 1995 D penny remained unchanged from previous years. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's profile faces right, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. Above his head, the word liberty appears, while the phrase "In God We Trust" arches along the top. The date, 1995, sits to the right, with the small D mint mark just beneath it. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can even spot a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person on both sides. Now here's where things get interesting. With billions of coins produced, you might assume none of them would stand out. But in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest variation can create significant value. And the 1995 D penny is no exception. One of the key factors that can make this coin valuable is condition. Most 1995 D pennies have been heavily circulated, meaning they show signs of wear from years of use. Scratches, fading details, and discoloration are common. But if you happen to find one in near-perfect condition, known as mint state, its value increases dramatically. Coins graded at the highest levels, like MS-67 or above, are extremely rare and highly sought after. Another factor is errors. While the 1995 D penny is not widely known for major errors like its Philadelphia counterpart, which famously features a double die variety, there are still minor errors that collectors watch for. These can include off-center strikes, weak strikes, or subtle doubling in the lettering. Even small imperfections can turn an ordinary penny into a collectible item. So why does this matter? Because collectors are always searching for coins that stand out from the rest. When billions of identical coins exist, uniqueness becomes everything. A slight variation, a higher grade, or an unusual flaw can transform a 1-cent coin into something far more valuable. Let's talk about real value. In circulated condition, most 1995 D pennies are still worth just 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, especially those with bright red surfaces and sharp details, they can sell for several dollars. That may not sound like much, but for a coin originally worth just a penny, it's a significant increase. Now consider the highest quality examples. A 1995 D penny graded MS-67 red has been known to sell for over $20 to $50, depending on the market and demand. And in rare cases, coins with exceptional eye appeal or unique characteristics can fetch even higher prices at auction. It's not about finding a single coin worth thousands. It's about understanding how small differences create value. And for collectors, that's where the excitement begins. But how do you know if the coin you have is real or worth anything? The first step is to check the mint mark. Look closely below the date for the small d. Make sure it's clear and not altered. Counterfeit pennies are rare, but altered coins do exist, especially when people try to add or modify mint marks to increase value. Next, examine the condition. Look at Lincoln's face, the lettering, and the edges. Are the details sharp, or are they worn down? A magnifying glass can help you spot fine details that aren't visible to the naked eye. The more detail the coin retains, the more valuable it may be. Also, pay attention to the color. Collectors often classify pennies as red, red-brown, or brown. Red coins, which retain their original copper shine, are the most valuable. Over time, exposure to air and handling causes the coin to darken, reducing its appeal and value. If you believe you have a high-quality coin or a possible error, you might consider having it professionally graded. Third-party grading services evaluate the coin's authenticity and condition, assigning it a grade that helps determine its market value. Here's something surprising. Even though the 1995 D penny isn't considered rare in the traditional sense, it plays an important role in the world of coin collecting. It represents a time when pennies were still widely used in everyday transactions, before digital payments began to take over. It's a piece of history that connects us to a specific moment in time. Another interesting detail is how these coins are collected. Some collectors aim to complete full sets of Lincoln pennies, including every year and mint mark combination. For them, the 1995 D penny is an essential piece of the puzzle. Others focus on high-grade coins, searching for the best possible example they can find. And then there are those who simply enjoy the hunt. They go through rolls of pennies, searching for hidden gems, hoping to find that one coin that stands out. For them, the thrill is not just in the value, but in the discovery. What makes this coin truly fascinating is how it challenges our perception of value. We're taught to see a penny as the smallest unit of currency, almost insignificant. But in the hands of a collector, that same penny can become a prized possession. It also reminds us that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice it. A coin that passes through hundreds of hands can still hold something special, something worth discovering. Today, collectors continue to seek out the 1995 D Lincoln penny, not because it's the rarest coin, but because it represents possibility. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can hold unexpected value. So the next time you receive change, take a closer look. That small copper coin might just have a story to tell. It might carry a piece of history, a subtle flaw, or a level of preservation that sets it apart from billions of others. And who knows, The penny you almost ignored could be the one that sparks your interest, your curiosity, or even your journey into the world of coin collecting. Because sometimes, the smallest things are the ones worth looking at twice. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, only to discover it might be worth far more than 1 cent. What if one of the most overlooked coins from the late 1990s is quietly hiding secrets that collectors are still searching for today? Today, we're diving into the story of the 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but holds surprising details, hidden varieties, and a unique place in American coin history. The 1998 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. By 1998, this coin had already become one of the most recognizable pieces of currency in the United States. Millions were produced, and most people never thought twice about them. They were simply everyday change, passed from hand to hand without a second look. But here's where things get interesting. When a 1998 penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike coins from Denver or San Francisco, which carry a small D or S mint mark, Philadelphia coins during that time often had no mark at all. So, at first, this might not sound rare. In fact, billions of these coins were made. So why are collectors paying attention to this specific penny? The answer lies not just in the coin itself, but in the tiny details that most people overlook. The 1998 no mint mark penny is made of copper-plated zinc, which had become the standard composition since 1982. It weighs about 2.5 grams and has that familiar copper color, although over time it may darken or show signs of wear. On the front, you'll see the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. The word Liberty appears to the left, while the year 1998 sits to the right. Above Lincoln's head is the motto, "In God We Trust." On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. At a glance, nothing seems unusual, but collectors know that the real value often hides in small variations, especially errors. One of the most talked about features of the 1998 penny is something called the wide AM variety. This refers to the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin. On most 1998 pennies, the letters are very close together, almost touching. But on the rare wide AM variety, there is a noticeable gap between them. This small detail might seem insignificant, but in the world of coin collecting, it makes a huge difference. The wide AM design was actually intended for proof coins, which are specially made for collectors. Somehow, a small number of these designs ended up being used on regular circulation coins. And that's where the excitement begins. Because these wide AM pennies were not supposed to be released into everyday circulation, they are considered rare errors. Most people who handled these coins had no idea they were holding something unusual. Many were spent, lost, or damaged over time. Today, finding a 1998 no mint mark penny with the wide AM can be a thrilling discovery. Depending on its condition, such a coin can sell for anywhere from a few $100s to over $1,000. In some high-grade cases, where the coin is nearly perfect, prices have gone even higher. But even without the wide AM variety, the 1998 penny can still have value, especially if it's in excellent condition. Coins that have never been circulated, known as mint state coins, are highly desirable. A pristine 1998 penny with sharp details and original luster can be worth significantly more than face value. There have been real auction examples where collectors paid strong prices for these coins. A well-preserved wide AM 1998 penny has been known to sell for several $100s, and in rare cases over $1,000 depending on grading and demand. These are not everyday finds, but they do exist, and they keep collectors searching. So how can you tell if you have one of these valuable pennies? First, look at the date and confirm it says 1998. Then check for the mint mark. If there is no letter under the date, it means it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, turn the coin over and focus on the word America. Use a magnifying glass if needed. If the A and M are clearly separated with visible space between them, you might have the wide AM variety. Another detail to check is the initials FG near the base of the Lincoln Memorial, which stand for Frank Gasparo, the designer of the reverse. On genuine coins, these initials should be clear and properly positioned, It's also important to watch out for altered coins. Some people try to modify common pennies to make them look like rare varieties. This is why careful inspection is key. If you believe you have a valuable coin, it's always a good idea to have it examined by a professional coin grading service. Now here's something surprising. Even though billions of 1998 pennies were produced, very few people actually check them closely. This means valuable varieties can still be hiding in plain sight. They could be sitting in old jars, piggy banks, or even in your pocket right now. Another fun fact is that coin collectors often refer to coins like this as sleepers. These are coins that don't attract much attention at first but have hidden value due to small details or limited errors. The 1998 wide AM penny is a perfect example of this. Collectors also love the thrill of the hunt. Unlike rare gold coins or ancient artifacts, pennies are accessible. Anyone can search for them. You don't need a huge budget to start. All it takes is curiosity, patience, and a keen eye. There's also a deeper appeal. Coins like the 1998 Lincoln penny connect us to everyday life in a specific moment in history. Think about it. This coin may have passed through thousands of hands, been used in countless transactions, and traveled across the country without anyone realizing its potential. Today, it stands as a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the smallest details. And that's exactly why collectors are drawn to coins like this. It's not just about money. It's about discovery, history, and the excitement of finding something rare where others see nothing special. So the next time you come across a handful of pennies, take a closer look. Don't rush past them. That one small coin could hold a story, a mystery, and maybe even a surprising value. Because in the world of coin collecting, even a single penny can turn into something extraordinary, if you know what to look for. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out an ordinary-looking penny, and realizing it could be worth far more than just 1 cent. It sounds unbelievable, but for some collectors, a simple 2002 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has sparked curiosity, questions, and even surprising value. The 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins that most people have probably handled without a second thought. At first glance, it looks like any other modern penny. But as we dig deeper, you'll discover why this small copper-colored coin continues to attract attention from collectors and everyday people alike. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the year 2002. By this time, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for over 90 years. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, the design had become one of the most recognizable in American history. In 2002, the U.S. Mint continued producing these pennies as part of everyday currency, with billions struck to meet the needs of the economy. Now here's where things get interesting. When you hear no mint mark, it might sound rare or mysterious. But in reality, for modern coins like the 2002 penny, no mint mark simply means the coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike earlier decades when mint marks were sometimes absent or inconsistent, by 2002, Philadelphia coins were intentionally struck without a mint mark. So, does that mean every 2002 penny without a mint mark is valuable? Not exactly. In fact, most of these coins are very common. Billions were made, and many are still in circulation today. But within that large number, there are certain conditions and rare variations that can make a huge difference in value. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, or obverse, features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word Liberty to the left, the year 2002 on the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" along the top edge. The back, or reverse, shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. In terms of material, the 2002 penny is not made of pure copper. Since 1982, U.S. pennies have been made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This gives the coin its classic appearance while keeping production costs low. Now, here's where collectors start paying attention. While most 2002 no mint mark pennies are worth only face value, coins in exceptional condition can be worth significantly more. These are known as uncirculated or mint state coins. They have no wear, sharp details, and often a bright, original shine. But condition is only part of the story. Errors and varieties are what truly excite collectors. Occasionally, during the minting process, something goes wrong. These mistakes can create unique coins that stand out from the rest. For the 2002 penny, some reported errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, and double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment during the striking process. There are also broad strike errors, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out slightly and lose its defined edge. While these errors are rare, they can dramatically increase a coin's value. A normal 2002 penny might be worth 1 cent, but an error coin could sell for tens, hundreds, or even more depending on its uniqueness and condition. Let's talk about real value examples. A standard 2002 no mint mark penny in average circulated condition is usually worth exactly 1 cent. However, an uncirculated version graded at a high level, such as MS65 or above, might sell for a few dollars. That may not sound like much, but for a coin that was originally worth 1 cent, it's already a significant increase. Now consider error coins. Some off-center 2002 pennies have sold for $20 to $50, depending on how dramatic the error is. Double die examples, if clearly visible, can reach even higher prices. In rare cases, collectors have paid over $100 for unusual and well-preserved error coins from this year. Of course, not every unusual-looking coin is valuable. That's why it's important to know how to identify a genuine coin versus damage or alterations. Real mint errors happen during production and usually have a consistent, natural appearance. For example, doubling from a true double die error will look sharp and part of the design itself, not blurry or smeared. On the other hand, damage caused after the coin leaves the mint, such as scratches, dents, or heat exposure, does not add value. In fact, it often reduces it. If you think you have a valuable 2002 penny, examining it under magnification and comparing it with known examples can help. For more serious collectors, having the coin graded by a professional service can confirm its authenticity and condition. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. Even though the 2002 penny is considered modern, it still carries historical significance. It represents the final years of the Lincoln Memorial design before the U.S. Mint introduced the Lincoln Bicentennial series in 2009. That means this coin is part of the closing chapter of a design that lasted nearly 50 years. Another interesting fact is that billions of pennies are produced each year, yet only a tiny fraction become collectible. What separates them is not just rarity, but the story behind them. A simple minting mistake, a preserved condition, or even a historical connection can turn an ordinary coin into something special. Collectors love the 2002 no mint mark penny because it reminds them that valuable coins can still be found in everyday change. Unlike older, rarer coins that may cost a lot to buy, this penny offers the thrill of discovery. Anyone can find one. All it takes is patience, attention to detail, and a bit of curiosity. There's also something deeply satisfying about searching through coins. It connects you to history in a very real way. Each penny has passed through countless hands, traveled across cities and states, and been part of everyday life. And every once in a while, one of those pennies stands out. As we come to the end, think about this. How many times have you ignored a penny because it seemed too small to matter? What if the next one you see holds a hidden detail, an error, or a condition that makes it worth far more than you expect? The 2002 no mint mark Lincoln penny may not be rare in the traditional sense, but it carries a powerful message. Value is not always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in the smallest details, waiting for someone to notice. So the next time you come across a penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary coin can tell an extraordinary story. Welcome back. What if the next penny you pick up from your pocket isn't just spare change, but a hidden opportunity? A small copper coin, dated 2006, carrying a tiny letter D, might look ordinary, but under the right conditions, it can tell a story that surprises even experienced collectors. Today, we're exploring the 2006 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, it's just another 1-cent coin. But when you look closer, you begin to notice the details, the history, and the subtle variations that can turn something common into something collectible. The 2006 D Lincoln penny was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major coin-producing facilities in the United States. The D Mint mark, found just below the date on the front of the coin, tells you exactly where it was made. In 2006, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies, and a large portion came from Denver. This means the coin itself is not rare in terms of total production. But rarity in coin collecting is not always about how many were made. It's about condition, errors, and unique characteristics. This coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been in use since 1909. The image was created by Victor David Brenner, and it was the first time a real person appeared on a circulating U.S. coin. On the back of the 2006 penny, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's a detail so small that many people never notice it. The composition of the 2006 penny is also interesting. Unlike older pennies made mostly of copper, this coin is actually made of zinc with a thin copper coating. It contains about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change was made decades earlier to reduce production costs, but it also means these coins are lighter and more prone to wear and damage over time. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. While most 2006 D pennies are only worth 1 cent, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more. The key factors are condition and errors. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, can already be worth more than face value. But if a coin is in near-perfect condition, graded at the highest levels by professional services, its value can rise significantly. Collectors often look for coins graded MS67 or higher. These coins have almost no visible flaws, even under magnification. A 2006 D penny in such condition can sell for anywhere from $10 to $50, and sometimes even more depending on demand. While that may not sound like a fortune, it's a huge increase from just 1 cent, but the real excitement comes from error coins. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. These errors are rare, and that's exactly what makes them valuable. Some 2006 D pennies have been found with die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface. Others may have off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned. There are also cases of double die errors, where parts of the design appear duplicated or slightly shifted. One of the most sought-after types is the double die obverse. In these coins, the lettering or numbers on the front appear doubled, especially in the date or the word Liberty. While not extremely common, these errors can increase the coin's value significantly. Depending on the visibility of the doubling and the coin's condition, collectors have paid anywhere from $50 to several $100s for such pieces. There have also been examples of 2006 D pennies with striking issues, such as weak details or unusual textures. These might not always be obvious, but experienced collectors know what to look for. Even a small variation can make a big difference in value. So how can you tell if your 2006 D penny is worth more than 1 cent? First, check the condition. A shiny, clean coin with no scratches or discoloration is always a good sign. Next, look closely at the details. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Examine the date, the lettering, and Lincoln's face. Look for anything unusual, such as doubling, cracks, or misalignment. Another important step is to compare your coin with verified examples. Many collectors use online resources or coin grading guides to understand what they have. If you believe your coin might be valuable, you can even send it to a professional grading service. These organizations will examine the coin, assign it a grade, and seal it in a protective holder. This not only confirms its authenticity but can also increase its market value. It's also important to be aware of fakes. While it may seem surprising, even pennies can be counterfeited, especially if they appear to have rare errors. Some people attempt to alter coins to make them look more valuable. For example, they might try to create fake doubling or artificially damage a coin to mimic an error. This is why careful inspection and professional verification are so important. Now let's talk about real-world value. While most 2006 D pennies are common, there have been instances where high-grade examples sold for notable prices. Coins graded at the very top levels, such as MS68, are extremely rare because it's difficult for a coin to remain perfect over time. In auctions and private sales, these top-grade coins have reached prices of over $100, and sometimes even higher depending on collector interest. Error coins can go even further. A strong double die or a dramatic off-center strike can attract serious attention. Collectors are always searching for unique pieces, and when they find one, they are often willing to pay a premium. This is what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what you might find. There are also some fun and surprising details about the 2006 D penny. For example, billions were made, yet only a tiny fraction are considered collectible in high grades. This means that out of all the pennies in circulation, only a few stand out as truly special. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, but that's part of the thrill. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln Memorial design was nearing the end of its run in 2006. Just a couple of years later, in 2009, the U.S. Mint introduced a new series of designs to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday. This makes the 2006 penny part of the final chapter of a design that lasted nearly 50 years. Collectors today appreciate the 2006 D penny not because it is rare in general, but because it offers the possibility of discovery. It's a coin that encourages people to look closer, to pay attention, and to learn. Whether you're a beginner or an experienced collector, it serves as a reminder that value can be hidden in the most unexpected places. For many people, coin collecting starts with something simple: a jar of pennies, a handful of change, or a coin picked up off the ground. But once you begin to notice the details, it becomes something more. Each coin has a story, and each year brings its own variations and possibilities. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of this idea. It may not be the rarest coin, and it may not make you rich overnight, but it represents the excitement of the hunt. It shows how even the smallest object can hold history, craftsmanship, and potential value, so the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, find the mint mark, and examine the details. You might just discover something that others have overlooked. And who knows, that simple 2006 D penny in your pocket today could be the start of a much bigger story tomorrow. Welcome back. Imagine picking up a simple penny from your pocket, something you've seen 1,000 times, and then realizing it might be more interesting than it looks. Not because it's ancient, not because it's made of gold, but because of what it doesn't show. Today, we're talking about the 2016 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that quietly circulates through millions of hands, yet still raises questions among collectors and everyday people alike. The 2016 Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognizable coins in the United States. First introduced in 1909, this coin has carried the portrait of Abraham Lincoln for over a century. By 2016, the design had already gone through several changes, but the core identity remained the same. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile facing right. On the back, you'll find the Union Shield design, which was introduced in 2010 to symbolize unity and strength. Now, when people hear no mint mark, it often sounds mysterious, almost like something is missing or rare. But in reality, a 2016 penny with no mint mark simply means it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. For many years, coins from Philadelphia did not carry a mint mark at all, making no mint mark completely normal for that location. So right away, we have a coin that feels special, but is actually very common in its standard form. To understand this coin better, we need to look at the year 2016 itself. This was a modern era of coin production, where billions of pennies were minted to meet everyday demand. The U.S. Mint produced these coins using advanced machinery, ensuring consistency and efficiency. In 2016 alone, billions of pennies were struck, with a large portion coming from Philadelphia, which is why so many 2016 pennies have no mint mark. The composition of the 2016 penny is also worth noting. Like other modern pennies, it is not made of solid copper. Instead, it has a zinc core with a thin copper plating. This change was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. While it may look like a classic copper coin, its true makeup is quite different from older pennies. Design-wise, the obverse features Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner. Above Lincoln's head, you'll see the word Liberty, and on the right side, the year 2016. The phrase "In God We Trust" is placed along the top edge. On coins from Philadelphia, there is no mint mark under the date, which is exactly what we're focusing on today. On the reverse side, the Union Shield design stands tall. It represents the strength and unity of the nation, with a banner stretching across the shield that reads E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. The denomination 1 cent is boldly displayed, along with United States of America. It's a clean, modern design that connects the past with the present. So if this coin is so common, why are people even talking about it? The answer lies in the world of coin collecting, where even ordinary coins can become valuable under the right conditions. While most 2016 no-mint mark pennies are only worth face value, certain examples can be worth much more. The key factor here is condition. Coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition, especially those graded at the highest levels, can command higher prices. These are coins that were never used in daily transactions, meaning they have no wear, no scratches, and retain their original shine. Collectors often seek out these perfect examples to complete their collections. Another factor that can increase value is the presence of errors. Mint errors are accidental flaws that occur during the production process. These can include things like off-center strikes, double dies, or unusual planchet issues. While rare, some 2016 pennies have been found with minor errors that make them more desirable to collectors. For example, a 2016 penny with a noticeable doubling in the lettering or date could attract attention. Similarly, a coin that was struck slightly off-center might be considered unique. These errors are not common, but they do exist, and when they are discovered, they can sell for more than a standard penny in terms of real market value. Most circulated 2016 no-mint mark pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. However, uncirculated coins in high grades can sell for a few dollars, sometimes even more if they are professionally graded. Error coins can vary widely in value, depending on the type and severity of the error. Some have sold for 10, 20, or even higher amounts, depending on collector interest. It's important to stay realistic here. There are many online claims suggesting that ordinary pennies are worth thousands of dollars, but in most cases, these claims are exaggerated. The true value depends on rarity, condition, and demand. A standard 2016 penny without any special features is not rare, but that doesn't mean it's not worth examining. If you want to identify a genuine 2016 no-mint mark penny, the process is simple. First, look at the date on the front of the coin. It should clearly read 2016. Then check below the date. If there is no letter, such as D or S, then it was minted in Philadelphia. Next, examine the overall appearance of the coin. Genuine coins will have sharp details, consistent weight, and a smooth edge. Be cautious of altered coins. Sometimes, people may try to modify coins to make them appear more valuable. For example, removing a mint mark or altering the surface can create a misleading impression. Always compare your coin to known examples, and if you believe you have something special, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. One interesting fact about modern pennies is how often they are overlooked. People tend to ignore them, drop them, or leave them behind, thinking they have no value. Yet, within these everyday coins, there is a hidden world of detail, history, and occasional surprises. Even a simple 2016 penny can tell a story about modern minting practices and economic decisions. Another surprising detail is how many of these coins are still in circulation. Unlike older coins that disappear over time, modern pennies continue to move through the economy, changing hands countless times. This means that valuable examples, especially error coins, can still be found in pocket change, bankrolls, or coin jars. Collectors today are drawn to coins like the 2016 Lincoln penny for several reasons. Some appreciate the continuity of the Lincoln series, which has become an iconic part of American culture. Others enjoy the challenge of finding high-grade coins or rare errors in everyday circulation. There is also a sense of connection, knowing that the coin in your hand is part of a long history that stretches back over 100 years. For beginners, this coin is an excellent starting point. It's easy to find, simple to identify, and provides a great introduction to the basics of coin collecting. By examining a 2016 penny, you can learn about mint marks, coin composition, design elements, and grading, all without needing to invest a large amount of money. At the same time, experienced collectors may still find interest in this coin, especially when it comes to searching for flawless examples or unusual errors. Even in a world of advanced technology and mass production, small variations can still occur, and those variations are what make coin collecting so exciting. As we come to the end, think about this. The next time you see a penny, will you ignore it, or will you take a closer look? Because hidden within that small piece of metal could be a story, a detail, or even a surprise that most people would never notice. And sometimes, the most ordinary things are the ones that hold the most unexpected value.